Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Simpletin podcast. My name is Adora DK, and I'm the host for this week's episode. So, the topic for today is hiring for culture fit versus skill set. And the first question I'd like to ask is, do we hire for culture fit or skill set as Simpletin Consulting?
I think that's an interesting question. So historically, I think we started off with skill sets. Because when you start off, a business and you start to scale up, building a team, if you haven't really spoken to someone who's built from the scratch and it just purely by you worked in an organization, you don't really get that level of detail. So initially we started with skill set, and it was skill set versus qualifications and interests. Whether or not this person had the skill, what did they study, and what were they interested in. But I think when you start to see patterns where people either having the skill or saying they have the skill via interviews, and they're not able to perform, or even if it wasn't performance, they just didn't have um the attitude that was required to succeed in what we're trying to do. When you have people who have negative energy, they could actually, damage the what's the word,
Right.
the synergy and whatnot of the team. But also it was to send a message to the other lady that you have to understand that your role is one that you're leading. So you can't just, just, you know, share this negativity, because whatever you say, people kind of buy into it because they're looking up to you and all that kind of stuff. I think that experience alone made me change my thinking around who a simpleton was, and I'll talk about that later on. But typically, right now, where we're at and what I've experienced, maybe because of my level of experience in what we do, is probably why I would say I take culture to be probably about 70% versus skill, because I feel like I always teach the skill. I always teach the skill. It's difficult, but I feel if you don't fit into the culture, and with Simpleton, the culture is a mindset. You know, it's not really, fine. We kind of, always look branded and all that kind of stuff, but it's really the mindset. So you have to have a certain mindset to kind of flow with everybody else. So yeah, so there is a very heavy bit on culture versus being skilled, because you could be as skilled as you want, but you might not fit into the culture. But I'll give other examples later on. But I think that would be my take. For Simpleton, yeah, our culture is a mindset. So you typically have to have the mindset before anything else.
Thank you so much for that response. But I'd also like to know what the other team members think on the choice between culture fit and skill set. So, Saze, can you answer that question for me?
All right. So when I heard about this topic, when I saw it on the calendar, I was thinking about what I was going to say because I had a feeling I was going to ask the question. And what came to my mind was looking at it from a Venn diagram perspective. Let's say you had a set of hiring for skill and then set of hiring for culture fit. So I'd say it's best to look at, though obviously the best is going to be a intersect, the huge people that have the skill and have the culture fit. But I think looking at the outside side, it would be better if you have said just to hire someone that has culture fit over than hire someone that has skill. Because skill can always be taught. But once someone is someone, their character is already established before they can just working with you is not just going to change who they are as a person, but working with you can change what they know how to do. So I just say hiring for skill sets is should be preferred less than hiring for culture.
Thank you so much for that response. And from that, you could probably tell that Osaze is our data analyst. Of course, he had to add some data elements to it, but that's appreciated. So next, I'd like Emmanuel to answer the question.
So I think for me, I'd like to have a more holistic view for this topic. Firstly, when I saw the topic, what came to my mind is okay, we're talking about attitude and skills. So my holistic view would mean that it varies. It varies in the sense that where the company is at the time or what the company is looking for. For instance, if you're looking for a higher role or a leadership role or a managerial role, I think yes, just like us as I said, a Venn diagram, you might want to also really look at skill. But more often than not, if I were to be an employer of labor or a CEO, I would look more closely to culture fit and attitude because mostly I'm employing people that maybe coming out of school, graduates, and even those that claim to say they know the skill, they have the skill, they still have to learn. They still have to learn. And lots of companies would have trainings that help them to learn on the job and even the experience that they have on the job. So for me, I would say culture fit. But like I said, to have an holistic view where you are looking at some other roles, you still have to consider the skills. So it's a mix of both for some roles. But more often, that's according to data, I'll say for the general roles that we usually would have, I would go for culture fit.
You know the interesting thing about what you just said when you talk about you know still having there is a portion of hiring for like skill. You know, I'll just talk about my experience, working. And one of the things that I realized was there was a period I was always so there was a period in my career strategy I wanted to work on certain projects, specific projects, and sometimes it wasn't just specific projects; it was specific project in specific companies that are within specific industries, right? Because I was trying to open up my you know consultancy kind of next move, so I needed a lot of knowledge. So that strategy meant I had to go for a lot of interviews. But at that point, I already had skill. I knew a lot of stuff with what I was doing. But what I realized was sometimes I don't get the role when I apply for them. I do the interview, but I don't get the job. So it started to impact my confidence a little bit because I'll have attended like 3 or 4 interviews. It's like, you're not successful, da da da. But I realized at some point it wasn't really about me because some of those interviews I did really, really well. You know, there's vibes, we're laughing. And some of the examples I gave, you could tell that these people knew that this guy was experienced. But this was the thing. When you're in the elite mode, like people who are skilled. So if there are 2 of us, let's say 5 people went for that same role, and there are 2 people who like are the top 2 that they selected. The thing that now determines who they pick is now the culture fit. Because they look at the person, would this person fit into how we work as a team? Would they fit into our vibe, how we work currently, you know? And I feel like that's what used to happen because what you get from the recruitment, consultant or whatever, they'd say something like, oh, it's between you and this other person, and it was very close. So I started realizing that it wasn't about so much that I didn't have the skills. It was just I probably wasn't the right fit at the time. So I stopped thinking too much about, getting the nose and just continuing to apply and the right one that sees me as the right fit will take me. And then secondly, there are also interviews that I probably had questions where I rambled a lot, but I knew they knew I was skilled enough, but maybe my interview just didn't portray that. But they selected because of the culture fit. They just probably thought this guy, mm, we kind of knew he would have the experience because his CV says it. He's got references, but his interview wasn't all that as such. But he fit, like he would come in and fit. But I think there's so much of it, but I definitely know that from my experience, the culture fit plays a heavier part. Yeah, than yeah. You can hire someone who is very skilled, but even at leadership level. And one of the things I learned in business is that culture is very strong. It's one of the biggest or the most difficult things to change. You can change processes, you can change other things, but to change a culture is very, very, very difficult. So even if someone's a leader, when they come in, they really need to understand the culture, of things. You can't just come in and then you want to change things up. It might be very difficult, to get people to adjust to what they're used to. It's like Simpleton now, we have a lot of flexibility in how we work and how we do things. So imagine someone says, okay, he's now the new CEO, no more working from home, everybody 8 to 6, bam, Monday to Saturday. That's how they see it. Like you probably get people just start resigning on the left, right, center. So that's what you mean about culture. You can't just come in and just think you change the culture.
But there's something that I want, as we were speaking, I would say yes, exactly what you just helped me to break things down. But when I was saying skill, one of the major things that you said that really clicked what I was trying to say is that, so for you to have applied for that role, there had to be some statutory level of skill that was required.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
It was when it got to the level. Because another thing again to look, because most times they'll say this fit. That what you said is what they usually, he was not the right fit.
Yeah.
Not like he didn't have the skill, but he didn't just fit the role or he didn't fit the culture. But there's something else that needs to be stated here. And how that I also do not see interviews as a true proof of someone's skills or knowledge. That is why many times wise HRs or people or companies, they wouldn't be looking at skill. They just want to see how you present yourself, how you're able to speak, and all of that. Because I don't see that as a true, because somebody might not perform well on an interview. Does not mean that that person is not the right fit. Does not mean that that person is not good enough. So to point to that is also to say we are not really looking at the skill like that. We are trying to weigh the person, how the person fit our own culture. So I think that's all I would look at it.
All right. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. So we've been saying a lot about culture, and I'd like to know what the culture at Simpleton is. So if Osaze can take that from me, please.
All right. So I think one of the major things we like to look at Simpleton is having an open mind when it comes to learning. Because I remember in some of the interviews that we've had, there were people that you could see that they had the skill, but the way they were talking was almost kind of in a condescending manner. Because there's a fine line between being confident in your answer and saying your answers in a way that you just feel on top. So I think that's the major thing. Someone has a skill, but you see that person, because it's going to be a problem going down, especially because we are a close-knit kind of organization. We like to work with ourselves. So when somebody has that attitude, it's going to be a problem when you're working with other people, because they're not going to want to hear anyone's suggestion. They feel like that is always the best as working. So to me, I feel like that's number one, having like an open mind when it comes to learning and being able to collaborate with other people. Because, again, as I said, it's very close knit. You're going to be working. There's hardly ever going to be a time that you're working on a project in isolation. Also, a time you're going to be working on a person or two people, a group of people. So there's that value that you need, which is collaboration. And I think let me just say one more, which is taking initiative. So that's a very big thing as well. A lot of the time, they might not be, we don't necessarily go to the time, but there's sometimes that maybe you just be done with a project and seemingly there's nothing for you to do. So would you just stay there and say, okay, nothing for me to do, then just sit down, watch a movie or stuff, or finding something to do. So you say, okay, I'm done with this. I see that my team member is struggling with this, or I've been thinking about this thing before. It would be good if you implement this process. It would be good if you change up this process to make it more efficient. Just taking that initiative to be able to solve problems without being asked to is a very big part for the culture.
Right.
For me, one of the key ones that I'm really keen about personally is taking initiative. And I'm keen about it because I've just found out that many people do not know how to take initiative. It's just something that is rampant. They might be very skillful, they might have the right attitude. And in fact, also if you bear me witness, one of the things that's very hard to find on an interview is someone that takes initiative. You can't, how do you tell? The person will tell you, but you can't know until the person comes on board. So it's on the person comes on board that we're able to say, oh, this person is taking initiative. And guess what? At the level we expect you to take initiative, which is, for me, I think it's something that every person should have. It is not common. We literally have to teach you how to take initiative. And it's also key for me because personally, I think it's a self-development because one of the things that boss usually say is that this is a place where we grow leaders. To be a leader, you must be able to take initiatives because things might not be going well or we're just lukewarm. It's the leader we are depending on for the way forward, for the 411. And to know the way forward, you have to be able to take initiatives to know that this is what we need to do. So for me, initiative is very strong one that we have. Another thing that we do here at Simpleton that I really love is growth. Growth in the sense that yes, we have a business, we're trying to grow a business, we have services and product we're trying to deliver, but we are also pertinent, we are also keen, we are also interested in your personal growth. And that will tell on how we rigorously take out some activities. So we are like serious to say, oh, have you done this? Have you done that? And for each activity, the way we carry it out shows that we are not just paying interest on the activity to say, oh, just do this task. No, we want to ensure that you are developing as you are doing the task. So for me, I think these are the key things that we have here at Simpleton.
Okay, yeah, so I think just from what we both said, the culture is majorly, as you've just said, it's having a growth mindset. Because I think everything that we've said just comes from when someone has a growth mindset, they want to learn, they want to develop themselves, they want to take initiative because they want to grow. So just the culture at Simpleton is everyone has a growth mindset. You want to grow yourself and you want to grow a business that you're working with.
All right. After that, I'd like to hear from the boss at the top. What do you think, or what do you have to say about the culture at Simpleton?
Well, I think Osaze has kind of said it, the divorce, Emmanuel Osaze have kind of summarized it. But you know what? Let's ask you. So, what do you think is the culture? Is the culture?
It's basically everything they've said. Having this growth mindset, having this mindset that when you're coming into this space, what I have coming in is not what I'm going to get or what I'm going to continue working with. I have to continuously improve on myself and basically continuously improving everything I'm doing, both hard skill set and soft skill sets. So it's just that mindset of being open to growth. I think that's the culture at Simpleton.
There are two things. You also mentioned something which is leadership, right? So two of our philosophies, which we've talked about, which is Kaizen, continuous improvement, which obviously if you have a good mindset, and then service leadership, which is literally anyone can be a leader, but it's really through your actions, how you impact other people that shows like whether you're a leader or not. And if you have those two things, you're pretty much someone who practices a growth mindset. And I think we talked about that this week when we shared our Simpleton culture. It is pretty much that a simpleton is someone who practices the growth mindset and are passionate about their own, personal growth and how they impact other people. So I think that's the culture in a nutshell. It's just trying to be better.
So we'll get some accolades for this now. Having to say that we've said everything.
I think you have
that we've learned and we really know what we're doing.
and you guys give me some bonuses.
Even me, as was hopping onto the question, I think I need to be appreciated.
Yeah.
So the next question I'd like to ask is something you mentioned earlier, but you mentioned that you have more examples for us. So it's a situation where you hire someone for the skill sets, but they lack the cultural fit. How have you been dealing with that? Or how did you deal with that if that happened?
So you had someone for skill set, but they lack the cultural fit. So I think we've just, the work we've just done, which is to come up with this, questions, almost like an attitude test, when people apply to Simpleton. And the reason is you want to measure out if they meet the criteria for someone with a growth mindset, right? So that's really what got us there because we've seen at interviews that people can talk the talk but don't walk the walk. Like, and the thing is not necessarily about you knowing it all. It's just that attitude of I really actually want to develop myself. I'm interested in me, right? It's one thing to come into an organization and want, financial benefits, which in a way doesn't because I'll give you an example. When I used to switch up, like when I say I go for roles that I'm trying to level up my skill, most times I come down in terms of what I'm worth because I understand the benefits. So let's just let me give an example. I am trying to be a Microsoft consultant. Maybe I've just got my Microsoft certification, but I don't have the experience. So that's that. I need the experience because I'm going somewhere. So when I start to put my certification on my thing, within the organization I'm working, I'm trying to jump on mini Microsoft projects that they probably might not allow me to fully take ownership, but I'm just trying. So I'm talking to colleagues, I'm trying to get in somehow, so I'm gaining some kind of knowledge. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to put it on my CV, right? Not that I have all the knowledge, but I just want to put it on my CV. So I do that. And then all of a sudden I start getting the opportunity to come and, do like a major Microsoft gig. Now, when that happens, because of the fact that number one, I'm not that confident because I haven't really implemented something like that. I have to come down on my financials. I know my worth, but for this particular space, I need the experience more than I need the money. Because when I get the experience, my money goes up, right? So that's pretty much, why you probably have to have that whole mindset of this is about me and my growth. Because once I can gain the experience and grow, then I can ask for more money because I know kind of what I bring to the table. So we have had to just focus and narrow in on finding simpletons. And these are just people who, like Osaze has broken down and Emmanuel and you guys have said, just show that element of they're so focused on wanting to grow themselves outside any other thing. And I think that's how we battled, right? Just not getting into that whole thing of, oh, you say you have the skill, you talk the talk. Because some people are so confident in interviews, they've not done anything. They haven't achieved anything and they're so confident in interviews. But then you'd have some people who are so nervous in interviews who just they can't articulate themselves. But you switch those people into the real roles, they turn out to be two different people. The one who talked the talk can't walk the walk. The one who couldn't talk the talk is walking the walk and running the run. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, so yeah. So for us, that's how we've kind of navigated that. So we're a bit more intentional. Even now, we're reviewing, that test to make it even harder. To make it even harder, so that we really get the elite of that way of thinking. Right. So that's how I think we've been able to, kind of, and most times it's not just me because, I have to speak to the guys.
And I was even just saying that I'd like us to do that test because now there's a way that if you look really hard and if you're very experienced and you know how to take exam very well, you can pass that exam without having mindset. But the way I want to improve it is there will not be any right or wrong answers, but just that every answer carries like a different weight in terms of relating that to a simpleton persona. And you can pass the person's answer through a model, an AI model, a machine learning model, deep learning model, and then to be able to bring you an output of like how many percent does this person is a simpleton persona. And then you can now say, okay, if it's not up to 80%, you're not going to make it to the interview stage. If it's up to more than 80 or above, okay, you're 50% I can make it to the interview stage. So just that process alone, before you even start testing person skills in that, you just know that this person is coming with the same person mindset already to this.
I think that's sorry to say. A key thing that you mentioned is the simpleton persona. That was another thing that we created. So yeah, we have a simpleton persona, which means that this person has certain motivations, certain challenges, certain aspirations. They fit a certain, kind of thing. So that's, yeah, that was another thing, because we have to be intentional now in keeping our energy, and almost like just making sure we're giving everybody what we say, because if you are expected to grow, but Emmanuel doesn't see it that way, then if you're working with Emmanuel, there's a likelihood that your standards start to dip, because you're not really being pushed. He's not holding you accountable. Um, and once you start having many of that, then it just becomes. But if you also are, kind of pushing, and Emmanuel too can see that, okay, there is always like a bit, he too would probably be like, okay, I can't continue like this. Or if it gets to a point, it might be something that gets to the wider team. Oh, I'm having issues because when I speak to Osaze, he's not really, I've spoken to him once, spoken to him twice, 3 times, because you're thinking of your growth. You're thinking, I want to do this thing because I feel like if I learn this thing, it will be good for me. Even if you didn't know it, the opportunity to get somebody that is willing to collaborate and walk through that challenge of, this is a bit overwhelming, but I have somebody that can, kind of balance it out. So we had to create like that persona. Yeah, before the test.
So I would have asked you about the persona, but I won't want to give future applicants a cheat sheet. I'll just
It's when you
that.
them some say, not.
Well,
Yeah.
this is relating to something you mentioned earlier, but I'd like to ask Emmanuel to kind of break it down for us. So you mentioned that having the wrong culture fit can affect performance. So I want to find out that how culture fit impacts performance and morale at Simpleton.
Okay, so I'll use an analogy for this. It's very simple. You just have to look at Simpleton as a body, and we're a team. If you are a team, you must have heard that the weakest link of the chain is what once it breaks out, everything breaks out. So if if we see ourselves as body, someone that doesn't have the right culture fits can be like a cancer, can be like a virus that needs to be cut out because it's going to affect the whole body. If, for instance, you employ somebody that um is not ready to learn, not ready to grow, every single thing that the team is doing, one person's work affects the whole team. If one person's work affects the whole team, that person's mindset can affect the whole team. But before the work, the person's mindset affects his work. So if the person doesn't have the right mindset or the right attitude, we can't be getting good output from the person. We can't be getting the right work from the person. And it will definitely impact other people. But also the mindset when you are coming together, how you speak about things, saying negative things, not being able to see that, oh, we can get through with this thing or we can do this work. Because for the growth mindset, there are certain words that people see, this person doesn't have a growth mindset. Because the person doesn't see a way out of situations. And here at Simpleton, we are always solving problems, always looking for challenges to deal with and solve. So if we are always doing that and we have somebody on the team that doesn't see through challenges, it's going to impact on the team or the people that the person is working with. There's a lot to say about that, but basically, the idea is see Simpleton as a body. If one part of the body is feeling pain, the whole body is feeling the pain. That's what it is. So if one part of the body is not good, the whole part of the body is feeling that. That's how it is.
And you technically can't perform, because if you look at it, like if you're an athlete and maybe you have like an ankle injury, common things, someone sees you limping, you can't say you're blind guy at that point. Just because now it's like an awkward walk, but it's obvious. And that's what it is, because now you can't technically just run the way you'd run, and perform at your highest performance, because a part is, not 100%, So I think, yeah, if you don't have the right kind of mindset, especially with what we're, a different organization might have a different fit, So I'll give you another example. I was doing this consulting gig in Scotland, and this organization is a government body. And they, I'll say their culture was like all inclusive of everything. I'm not going to say too much, but inclusive of everything, meaning that you could be anything you say you are. You know, you could be a human who claims to be a cat, and you accept it, right? You know where I'm going with that. Well, I'm not going to say too much, but that's that. So I remember one day coming downstairs, and I was going to play football, you know, because it was one of those organizations that allowed you to play football. So I was going to play football, and I had to change. And you had this toilet that says gender neutral. That was what was written on it. So I was curious because I said, gender neutral to me means that anybody can go in because neutral, right? I was curious, but I was also a bit nervous because I was like, if you enter and it's supposed to be for female, you're not in a female toilet, right? But I thought, gender neutral, let me even just go. So I walked in, and there's a woman on the mirror.
You have said you walked in and behold.
I didn't see things. Didn't see this. So he was using the mirror, right? But she wasn't startled that I had walked in.
Okay.
So which means she obviously was used to the gender neutral thingy, right? Meaning that she was used to the culture of everybody inclusive in that way. So anyway, the way the cubicles are set up, it's not like how you have men and you have like these men cubicle thing that men can just stand, because obviously men can't just stand. So it's a cubicle for everybody. So there's nothing for like male specific. So I went into my cubicle, and for some reason I was just nervous and uncomfortable because now I'm like, the next door could be a female. I'm not used to females like in the same toilets and space with me. You know what I'm saying? So I was just so nervous all through the whole thing. Then I came out and there were a couple more females. And then the guy she was in there, right? I'm not going to go into detail, but now you had everybody
Gender neutral.
in the same space, right? I just wanted to kind of hurry up and move out. Not because I was judging anybody, but now I'm in a space where I wasn't comfortable because it's not an experience. Once I was curious to go in to understand what it was, it's now something I've experienced. I just thought, okay, if it's part of the culture, obviously they had men's toilet as well. I would choose the men's toilet as my own culture. I just wouldn't want to walk in there, even though I know no one will have a go at me for being in that toilet. Do you know what I mean? It's part of the culture. It's a gender neutral thing. So sometimes culture is different things, you know, but for us, it's our growth mindset. For another organization, it could be totally something totally different. So how you perform can impact, because imagine I came out of that and I had a very horrible experience with maybe a female who was speaking to me somehow because she thought maybe I was looking at her. And then I come and then maybe I tell management and they don't want to listen to me. Now I'm feeling uncomfortable at work. I don't like going to work anymore, or I just start feeling maybe it starts to impact my whole work experience now, how I approach things, how I approach colleagues, the whole like, okay, I don't feel like I should be here because maybe my values are being, kind of threatened or whatever it is. It can actually absolutely in different ways affect how you see yourself, how you perform, and how you do things generally.
There's one more thing I would like to say before you go. I don't know if you would watch movies where it's kids and some use wolves, like lots of wolves or dogs.
Yes, yeah,
I don't know what they call it, but there's a name that it's been called. But doing snow areas where they have like many dogs or wolves, and then they are running and then it's moving, just like cats. So then you use horses. What do you call it? Slide.
Sled.
Sled. So if a dog or a wolf is not feeling fine, that thing can move. If it gets injured or something, can move. And there's always a leader in front. So, but it's a team of people. They need it, and they usually use that so that it can move very fast because there are many and they can run fast. So if any of them is not feeling fine, any of them has a broken leg, or is not just feeling like it, or is not eating, that thing can move. That whole thing can move.
Even if it moves, it spoils the rhythm
It spoils the rhythm.
because they have to be on a rhythm
As we are moving
to move properly.
So they might have to be dragging the dog and all. So that's an example of how a person with the wrong culture can begin to affect the whole thing.
Thank you very much for that. So, given everything that has been said, I'd like to end this with the evolution of your thought process on this topic. Like when you started out to now, how has your idea on culture fit versus skill set changed over the years as a founder?
When you start out, the whole thing about being an entrepreneur, it's a journey. You find out so many things, not only about other people, particularly about yourself, right? So how it being when we talk about culture, you are part of that culture. So if you do not adjust, whatever comes into your space is what you accept, right? So for me, my thought process over time has really been quite intentional. I guess has been to be intentional about what we stand for, right? And what that means is you can have an organization and say, okay, I'm just making money. Or you can actually have an organization that makes an impact. I've kind of evolved my thinking to be okay with the fact that I am not the main character. Like I am not everybody might seem to think I am, but I know in the picture of things, it's really not about me. And it's why we're very intentional. Because if I'm intentional about Osazi's development, then I'm intentional about who Osazi works with. Do you understand? And I'm also intentional about if Osazi is not performing, I have to be okay with say, look, what's going on here? Because ultimately, it's not about me. The focus is, okay, is he going to succeed with that behavior? And if the answer is no, I have to have the conversation. I have to kind of approach the convo. Previously, I may not have, I might have dragged it a long time. But like I said, that whole process of disappearing really had me working on myself and really had me to focus on how intentional do you really have to be about this thing? If not, just forget it and just do something else. So yeah, over time, yeah, you have to, I've had to be very focused and very intentional about doing what we do now and about the individuals here. Because that culture is not just a culture of the now, it's a culture of the future. It's a culture of the impacts that you guys make to other people. Like if I wasn't around, I think people know what to do. And I think if new people are around you, they know what they would have. They know what would not fly after a while, even if you accepted it for a little bit. And I think that's just what it is. It's me kind of really working on myself, you know, to kind of get to that point. The imperfect perfection is what we call it. Is that good enough for you?
Yes,
Fantastic.
that was awesome. So that was a wonderful response, and I would like to appreciate every one of you for all your responses today. I honestly had a great time, and I hope you all did as well. So something I'd like to leave everyone with is that we should all have a growth mindset. You should always look at your skill set or anything you're looking at. You should always think about it with the knowledge or the idea that we need to grow. I need to be different from who I am today, tomorrow. I need to continuously improve myself to be able to fit any of the cultures that we're trying to fit into. You need to always think about growth. Thank you very much and see you next week.